Good morning to all of you. Welcome to Legal Matters by Sai Babu Sankara. Jurisprudence. In this video, we are going to discuss the difference between the primary rules and secondary rules. So far, we have learned that the law is enunciated by certain schools of thought, like analytical, natural school, philosophical school. Then the jurisprudence developed certain theories like utilitarian theory or the so-called Hans Kelsen's pure theory of law, and some other law like Dworkin's theory or H.L.A. Hart theory and socio-contractual theory by Rousseau. All these things slowly developed. Then the legislation. Yes, they can make act. The precedent, it can be taken as a material source for the act. So not only the acts, but there should be rules. This is what we are going to learn today. So the law should not only be in the shape of acts, but also in the shape of rules. These rules are of two types. One is primary and the secondary. Second one is the secondary rules. Primary rules are definitely they are binding rules. Secondary rules are only supporting rules. Second rules are like contractual obligations. Primary rules are criminal prohibitions. That is what we are going to discuss today. So Act will definitely contain some rules. For example, Code of Civil Procedure. It has got civil rules of practice. Code of Criminal Procedure, criminal rules of practice. Information Technology Act, information technology rules. Like that, rules will be there almost for all the acts. Right. The primary and secondary rules, they would tell you what you are legally obliged or to do or to restrain. First of all, what is the rule? So normally the law contains the sections. Law contains certain provisions. Then how to implement them? This is in the shape of rules. So for example, as per section 174 CRPC, the police are authorized to conduct inquest. Then what is the right inquest? So how the inquest form should be? When they have to take up inquest, during night they should not take up inquest. When they shall send then they have to send the body for postmortem exam. These are all available in the rules. So this is the advantage of rules. So please remember, the rules are there where you are obliged to do or not to do certain things. So the consequences if you don't do all these things. So criminal rules, normally they prohibit the theft, they forbid certain conduct. So traffic rules, they forbid you to walk on the right side of the road, they forbid you to go at high speed, is it not? So they forbid the conduct and they provide penalties for violating the same. Every day in and out, drunk and drive case, helmetless driving, cell phone using driving, all these things you know. Right. So primary rules bind the people whether they like it or not. This is important. So if you want to hold inquest, the primary rule is it should be done during daytime. Even though it is emergency, you can't do anything. So this is the primary rule. Secondary rules are just like contractual rules. So they bestow facilities upon the primary rules. So for realizing their wishes. So contractual obligation. So there is a primary rule that the persons who are like-minded, the persons who are as per law, they can enter into agreement. Then the conditions. The rules, the conditions, they can be interchanged. They can be modified by the source of the so-called secondary rules. So second rules are only supporting rules. So please remember, primary rules, normally the examples are number one, criminal prohibitions. Second, tort rules. Criminal prohibitions already we discussed this kind. You should not actually commit any murder. So if you commit the murder, the section 302 will be there. Basing on that, the primary rules, second rules will come. Then tort rules, tortious rules. Yes, you can't defame anybody. You cannot assault anybody. You cannot file a malicious prosecution case against anybody. There are certain rules. Basing on the rules, you cannot file. Then right to freedom of speech, no doubt. We have the voice. This nalike kada edaina maatladochu kaani reasonable restrictions are there. సో ఒక పబ్లిక్ మీటింగ్ ఫ్రీడమ్ ఆఫ్ స్పీచ్లో సింపుల్గా మీకు చెప్పాలంటే రాజకీయ నాయకుడు ఏది పడితే అది మాట్లాడకూడదు. ఎందుకంటే ఎదుటి మనిషి ఇబ్బంది పెట్టేటట్టు పబ్లిక్లో మాట్లాడకూడదు. కానీ అతనుకున్న ప్రైమరీ రూల్ ఏంటి? వెన్ ఎవర్ ది అసెంబ్లీ ఈస్ గోయింగ్ ఆన్ హీ కెన్ టాక్ వాట్ ఎవర్ హీ లైక్స్ ఇన్సైడ్ ది అసెంబ్లీ. సో దిస్ ఈజ్ వాట్ ఈస్ కాల్డ్ రైట్ టు ఫ్రీడమ్ ఆఫ్ స్పీచ్. అండ్ కాంట్రాక్ట్స్ దట్ డిఫైన్ ఆబ్లిగేషన్ ఆఫ్ ద పార్టీస్. మీకు ఆర్బిట్రేషన్ క్లాజు ఇవన్నీ ఉండే దీంట్లోనే ఆబ్లిగేషన్ ఆఫ్ ద పార్టీస్. మీరు ఈ కాంట్రాక్చువల్ ప్రకారం ఈ పని చేయాలి, లేకపోతే ఆర్బిట్రేటర్ దగ్గరికి వెళ్ళాలి. అలాగే ఎన్విరాన్మెంట్ రూల్స్. సో యూ హ్యావ్ టు సెటప్ ఎన్ఈటిపి, ఎఫ్లూయెంట్ ట్రీట్మెంట్ ప్లాంట్ ఫర్ క్లీనింగ్ ఆఫ్ దీస్ థింగ్స్ అని చెప్పి క్లియర్గా. ఫర్ ద డిశ్చార్జ్ ఆఫ్ టాక్సిక్ సబ్స్టెన్సెస్ ఇన్ డోంట్ discharge the toxic substances and waste into the rivers or streams. So this is a primary rule. Now we will go to the secondary rules. Contract law that enable the parties to form contract. Already told you the secondary rules. Primary rule is forming part of a contract. Then the rules you can frame. Rules that allow testator to create a will. So what are the rules for creation of a will? Simply saying, there is no primary rule that you have to get it registered. You have to do this thing. ఒక వీలునామా రాసినప్పుడు మీరు కొడుకు పేరుతో రాయాలి, కూతురు ఎక్కడా లేదు, వీలు రాయొచ్చు అన్నాడు వీలునామా. ఆ వీలునామాను రిజిస్టర్ చేయాలా లేదా? చేస్తే మంచిది, సెకండ్ రూల్. చేయకపోతే ఎవరు అడగరు. సో ఇట్స్ ఓన్లీ ఏ సెకండరీ రూల్. లైక్ కాన్స్టిట్యూషన్ రూల్స్ దట్ కన్ఫర్ లెజిస్లేటివ్ పవర్. ఇవి కూడా సెకండ్ రూల్సే. లెజిస్లేచర్ పవర్, స్పీకర్ గారు ఏదైనా చేయవచ్చును. He has been conferred with so many powers. You can't question them in the court of law. Secondary power. ఏదైనా చేయొచ్చు. అలాగే the statute that authorizes society to promulgate rules of practice and procedure. So కొన్ని సందర్భాల్లో society actually the statutory law they may create certain secondary rules also. Right? So what is the advantage of the second rules? If you imagine that only primary rules are there, if the second rules are not there, definitely please remember it will become nothing but a customary law. Bagide deninte annarante it becomes only customary law. So rules enable individuals to create primary rules that govern their private relationship. So to end, I want to tell you, please remember, primary rule plus secondary rule is equal to the so-called legal system. This is what I have written in the notice board yesterday. So please remember, so here the famous jurisprudence, H.L.A. Hart, he classified the tort rules. He classified the criminal law rules. He stated that the tort rules and the criminal provisions, they are the primary rules. Already we have given examples. Likewise, H.L.A. Hart stated that the rules of the contract are the secondary rules. So please remember, rules play a major part just like that of the act also. Particularly the primary rules, they play the major role, because whether you are willing or not, you have to observe the primary rule. Of course, secondary rules are only supporting rules. This you know. So please remember, this is regarding primary and secondary rules. And before framing the law while framing the law, you should note down the so-called rules also. Why? Because rules are concerned with what happens, but not with what to be done. So what to be done is by the law. What happens is by so-called rules are. So please remember, rules are concerned not with what happens, but what has to be done. So just I think even I am also confused. Please remember, rules are concerned not with what happens, but what is to be done. So normally the rules are commands which call for unique performance, 100%. Of course, I told you primary rules only 100%, secondary rules you can change them. So rules are imperative. So you have to follow them. Rules are prescriptive rather than descriptive or indicative. So please remember, these are examples of primary rules already given. Rules of criminal law, forbidding murder, robbery, rash driving. Rules of secondary, contract rules that enable the parties to form their own contract to create wills, things like that. So almost I have repeated every topic once or twice in this video. So hear the video once again, and definitely you will be thorough with the rules, primary rules and secondary rules. Thank you very much.